A female writer on Friends revealed what male writers actually said behind closed doors, and it's disturbing. Friends was supposed to be this golden age of television, right? Well, Lisa Kudrow just pulled back the curtain, and what she revealed was pretty uncomfortable. She confirmed that the male writers in that room, and there were a lot of them, made repeated sexual comments about Jennifer Aniston, Courteney Cox, and the other female cast members. We're talking ongoing commentary that created a genuinely hostile environment for the women working on set. What's worse? This behavior wasn't some isolated incident. It was normalized, tolerated, and essentially ignored by the people running the show. That's the real story behind one of TV's biggest comedies. The 2006 lawsuit filed by the female writer painted a picture of a workplace that was anything but professional. According to her account, the male writers didn't just make passing comments, they engaged in sustained, explicit behavior. She detailed instances where writers openly discussed sexual acts they wanted to perform with Jennifer Aniston, using graphic language that had no place in a professional setting. When it came to Courteney Cox, the comments turned degrading, focusing on her body in ways designed to demean and humiliate. But it didn't stop at words. The lawsuit also documented that these writers would simulate sexual acts right there in the room, acting out scenarios as if it were all just part of the creative process. The female writer named specific individuals involved, including Lyle, Greg Malins, Adam Chase, and Andrew Reich. What makes this particularly damning is that these weren't isolated incidents or jokes that slipped out once. This was a pattern of behavior that continued over time, creating an environment where the female cast members were reduced to objects for the male writers' entertainment. The lawsuit provided concrete examples rather than vague allegations, making it impossible to dismiss as misunderstanding or oversensitivity. It was systematic harassment, normalized within the walls of one of television's most celebrated shows. What makes this situation even worse is that the harassment didn't happen once or twice in isolation. The female writer documented a clear pattern of behavior that stretched over time, and she made her objections known repeatedly. She directly asked the male writers to stop, multiple times. She named names: Lyle, Greg Malins, Adam Chase, and Andrew Reich. These weren't anonymous complaints or vague concerns. She was specific about who was doing what and when it was happening. But here's the critical failure: management did nothing. When she brought these complaints forward, there were no consequences. The writers faced no disciplinary action. They weren't required to attend training. They weren't told to stop. The behavior continued because the people in charge allowed it to continue. That's not a case of a few bad apples, that's a systemic problem. When someone complains about harassment and nothing happens, the message is clear: you can keep doing this. There's no accountability here. This is what separates a one-time mistake from actual harassment. It's the repetition, the explicit complaints, and the complete lack of consequences. The female writer wasn't being oversensitive or misinterpreting jokes. She was experiencing a workplace where her objections were ignored and her comfort didn't matter enough to warrant action from the people running the show. Here's what makes this case so important: Friends wasn't some obscure show made in a basement. It was the biggest television phenomenon of the 90s and early 2000s. It won Emmy Awards. It shaped pop culture. And yet, inside that writing room, a woman felt so unsafe that she had to take legal action just to be heard. That tells you something crucial about how deep this problem runs in entertainment. When harassment can happen on the set of a show that won critical acclaim and had millions of fans, it means the issue isn't isolated to some bad apple production. It's systemic. It's structural. The lawsuit shows us that even when a woman speaks up, even when she names names and documents what's happening, there's no guarantee anything will change. Management knew. Nothing happened. That's the pattern we keep seeing across Hollywood. The real lesson here is that awareness alone isn't enough. Knowing that harassment happened doesn't fix anything. What matters now is actual consequences. Real accountability. Not just apologies years later when someone decides to go on a podcast and talk about it. Entertainment needs structural change, not just public reckoning. So here's what we've learned: awareness alone doesn't fix anything. The Friends' writing room had power imbalances that made it easy for harassment to thrive unchecked. Real change requires consequences, actual accountability, not just apologies or lip service. Male-dominated spaces need structural safeguards, reporting mechanisms with teeth, and leaders willing to enforce them. Without that, the cycle just repeats. That's the hard truth.